Let's do it.
Rolls out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
Welcome back to another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. I am your host, Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. Joined once again by the whole crew. And tonight we're going to switch things up just a little bit here. I got a little bit of feedback from one of my co-hosts last week. Didn't give him the shine he felt he deserved. And since we know he is a wide receiver, they need to be out in front. They need the attention. Miles didn't like being grouped in with Yinka last week, so I'm going to let Miles go first in the introductions this week. What's going on, my man, Miles?
I'm not that much of a diva, but, same old.
Good
a lot of
stuff.
work, a lot of stuff going on. New puppy still wreaking havoc, but he's doing good, so.
Good stuff. QB1, man, what's going on with you?
It's been a rough night, man. Just seeing all these bad quarterbacks play in these preseason games right now. It's really making my skin crawl, but I'll be all right.
You making you want to go out there and warm up? You gonna start throwing the ball through the tire in the backyard?
Yeah, the getting a little itch right now. The shoulders, twitching a little bit right now, seeing these guys play. But I'm fine with being the all-time flag football quarterback at the family cookout right now.
And speaking of flag football quarterback, Saxy Prince. How's that going, man? Y'all fired up the league? You started up? You ready to go?
We're not started up yet. I just actually sent email tonight actually to the guy who's going to be coordinating everything. I was just like, hey, we got to get a couple practices, going. I need to make sure I know what my talent is around me so I can at least, mentally start preparing if I need to take sacks more often than not. But anyways, I was actually thinking about this on my way back from work. I was in the car and I was like, man, I really want to take a nice road trip somewhere. I think I want to go out to LA, sometime soon. Maybe when it gets towards the winter or whatnot, because it gets really cold up here in Minnesota. So that being said, what's the next road trip y'all planning on taking?
Well, for me, we take a yearly trip to the beach. That's really the only road trips that I take. I don't really go anywhere like really long or anything like that. But, South Carolina or Virginia beaches are usually the road trips that we take yearly.
Virginia Beach?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I used to do that, make that drive up from Atlanta every summer back in the day.
Absolutely. Great beach.
Miles, what about you, man? You got any trips lined up or of wedding and honeymoon and everything got you on lock for the foreseeable future?
I think it's got us unlocked, but I really want to go down to like New Orleans. I think that's a plan of ours at some point, maybe in the next year. Try to get down there. I've never been down there, so I think that's one of the spots we'd like to go.
Yeah, New Orleans is a fun city. Don't go during Mardi Gras though, especially if you're going with white. Like, it's a fun city, good music, the people are fun. It's dirty. It's real dirty.
Perfect for Prince. Yankee, you heading down there Mardi Gras?
Oh, Yink is eating again, so he can't answer you right now. But he's saying
nope,
no.
I ain't going to Mardi Gras, yo.
Yeah, as for myself, I don't have any road trips planned, but next weekend I'm going down to Atlanta for the long weekend. Go catch up with the with the folk, get a wedding in. Guess we are traveling north of the city, a little bit further north than I'd want to be when I'm going down there. But it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do for friends and weddings and all that stuff. So, yeah. Well, I guess we'll move on from the random question of the day and move into some of the things we wanted to talk about. So, obviously, over the course of the summer, we've been talking about the Kyrie news for a little bit. Kyrie wanted to get traded, wanted to get out of Cleveland. Trade finally went down. Danny Ainge finally gave up some of those draft picks. At the end of the day, I think the pieces were Kyrie went to Boston. Boston sent Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, a European prospect, and the Nets' unprotected first-round pick for next year. With all that said, all those players, all those pieces moving around, what y'all think about the deal? Who do you think won the trade? And do you think this makes any difference in what happens in the Eastern Conference next year? JR, you are our resident basketball guy, so I will obviously start this one with you.
Well, I think it's kind of unknown who wins this trade right now. Initially, I thought that Boston won the trade, but now that I sit back and think about it, it's kind of an unknown. And I think the whole wild card in this whole trade is that 2018 unprotected Brooklyn pick. That's probably going to be a top 5 pick. It could end up being a number 1 pick. I thought Brooklyn got a little bit better this offseason. You know, they got some bigger names and D'Angelo Russell and Allen Crabbe. So those 2 names will help them. I don't know how many more games that they will win from last season just because they were downright awful last year. And they're sure to be a top 5 team. Where they will be in that top 5, I don't know. The hope is for Cleveland that it is the number 1 pick. If it does end up being the number 1 pick, I think it completely changes this entire trade. What I mean by that is the 2018 NBA draft is absolutely loaded. The 2 biggest headliner names are Marvin Bagley, who will be a freshman at Duke, and Michael Porter Jr., who will be a freshman at Missouri this year. Both of them are considered to be the next NBA superstars. And I thought the trade was good for Cleveland because it puts them in position for the post-LeBron era. And I think that was the whole purpose behind this entire trade because they know that they're not going to beat that monster out west, which is the Golden State Warriors. There's no possible roster that they can put together to beat the Golden State Warriors. As long as they're together, the Warriors are going to win the championship. Everybody knows that. And, you know, the biggest elephant in the room is where's LeBron James going to go after this season?
So with that though, I guess with this trade, and I know that's something that has, you know, been kind of, you know, spoken on sports radio and on Twitter and things like that. Do you think this trade puts them any closer than they were last year? Like with them losing Kyrie, but getting Isaiah Thomas, who, at least from a statistical perspective, seems to be a similar player, and then gaining a guy like Jay Crowder, who is a good defender, at least someone who could maybe take some of the pressure off LeBron and all the defensive work that he needed to do when they did match up with Golden State. I mean, do you think this puts them closer? They win a couple more games, maybe you're able to stretch it out, and you know, LeBron can do his thing in a game 7?
No, I think this trade really canceled each other out, in my opinion. There really wasn't, you know, one guy was better than the other because Isaiah Thomas and Kyrie Irving are essentially the same guy. Yes, Jay Crowder provides defense, but they need scoring. That's what they needed to beat the Golden State Warriors. Yes, he's a great defender, but they need somebody that can score. And, you know, Crowder provides that, but he's not going to get you over the top as far as an NBA championship. And like I said, I like the trade for Cleveland because I think they're thinking future. They're basically forgetting about LeBron James and protecting themselves and their future. That was one of the biggest reasons why I like the trade for the Cavaliers because they're thinking for the post-LeBron era, getting that Brooklyn pick.
All right. And I actually go to Saxy Prince next on this because, you know, this trade finally went down and it killed a dream of yours. You know, you had that dream. Your man Kyrie might have been able to come in and join, you know, the budding super team in Minnesota there. So, you know, now that dream is officially dead, what are your thoughts on kind of how everything went down and how that positions things in the Eastern Conference?
Kyrie, man, excuse me. No, I think JR had said I think this canceled out. In my opinion, I actually think that the Cleveland they got a little bit worse in terms of I definitely don't feel now that they can beat the Golden State Warriors because they needed to add scoring. They had a defense, which I think would reduce the amount of scoring that Golden State does. But the problem with the Golden State Warriors is not it's not just that they score you know, throughout the entire game, but they have the ability to turn on, you know, in that like late fourth quarter when guys are tired. You know, LeBron, we saw as LeBron, you know, once that third quarter hit, LeBron really started to slow down. And, you know, it'd be great to have a defender or two that you can bring in to stop Kevin Durant. But, you know, they needed to add another guy that was going to give LeBron not to have to do everything by himself. You know, Kyrie was doing when LeBron couldn't hit, Kyrie was the guy going to the hole. Can JR step up even more so? I don't know. I don't think so. So as far as this trade goes, I still say it's good for Boston. I don't know if they necessarily won per se, but I think that they probably did a better job of the two. So
Okay, and I'll flip this to Miles, and let him kind of take us home on this one. But I feel like you're overlooking Isaiah Thomas a little bit there, Prince. Like you didn't really bring him up in the analysis, and I mean he was a pretty good player in last season. So I mean he was pretty clutch. Some of the things that Kyrie brought to the table for Cleveland. I mean Isaiah Thomas was doing those things for Boston just last season.
No, I don't disagree with that. It's just maybe it's just because I have more of a bias towards Kyrie than I do Isaiah. I think Isaiah is a fantastic player, but there is going to be an issue when it comes to height. I mean that is going to become somewhat of an issue, not a big issue, but I think it's going to play somewhat of a factor when it comes to matchups and whatnot. So he's still a great player though, great scorer too.
Okay, Miles, bring us home. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, so I think for Isaiah Thomas personally, I think for him it really helps him because playing with a guy like LeBron James will really help space the floor for him and kind of keep some of the key defenders off him because I know, in Boston he was the go-to guy, so they kind of had to key in on him. And I know Boston getting a guy like Gordon Hayward really would have helped him there, but guys like Kevin Love, LeBron James, I think the Crowder pick was really big because he's a key defender that I think they really needed. They needed like a lockdown defender to kind of help against the Golden State Warriors, whether it's against, a guy like Curry or Klay Thompson's probably more a guy who guarded Klay Thompson, but they needed that. They really needed that defensive presence in the wing position. I know Iman Shumpert's pretty solid defensively, but he's not. I don't think he is what he used to be. So really like that aspect of it. I thought Cleveland probably won the trade overall in some of those regards. Boston's doing their best to kind of make that push to beat Cleveland. I mean, obviously it's going to be a two-headed race between those two for the Eastern Conference. Obviously LeBron's that trump card, which is tough for Boston, but I think they've added a lot of weapons and a lot of key weapons and a young core to kind of build around that they've done. So they're set for the future, which is really good for Boston. That's what I liked about the trade for them is whether them keeping Isaiah or not, there's, Kyrie still got a couple years on his contract left. Just signed Gordon Hayward, Al Horford. You got Al Horford. I'm not the biggest fan, but you got Marcus Morris and who's the young kid, Jason Tatum. So they're pretty set. I like what they got going on, and I think they're really going to look to try to contend in the next coming years, and they're probably, wishing LeBron goes out west, to be honest, after the season.
Cool. So moving right along to to the next big story in sports, the story that seems to have been going on forever, and I'll be very happy when this weekend hits and we make it to the other end. But this is the week. This is the weekend. Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, square off in Vegas. And while it started off, no one really was giving McGregor a chance. Like this started off and the betting line was crazy. But over the course of this last week, a lot of money, a lot of bets have come in on Mr. Conor McGregor. And at this point, I mean, it's about, I think, 4-1, 3-1. So, I mean, it's actually getting to a place where, people are starting to think that this might actually be a fight. So I guess we'll go through this one pretty quick. JR, what are your thoughts on the fight? And is there any chance at all McGregor can shock the world?
No, zero. No chance at all. The fight is going to go all 12 rounds. We know that. That's just how Floyd Mayweather fights. He's not a guy that's going to knock out people, but he's going to be a technician and he's going to outbox you. McGregor's only hope is to come out swinging like a wild man the first few rounds and hope to knock him out. But I don't think it's going to be any closer. I don't think McGregor has any chance at all.
Okay, Miles, how about you? What are your thoughts? Do you think of the same thing, JR, or do you think, Conor left-handed, lucky punch anyway that he can come in and take this thing on home?
No, I don't. I really don't. I'm actually kind of expecting him to accidentally try to kick Mayweather because I don't think there's anything else he's going to be able to do. I know it's probably – I'm curious to see how McGregor handles Mayweather just because Mayweather's more the kind of guy that sits back and, plays that rope-a-dope game. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But overall, I think Mayweather's going to win this hands down.
And Saxy Prince, what are your thoughts on the fight, man?
I think Conor McGregor should put brass knuckles or something in his boxing gloves to give him any sort of a chance. I said it before. He's gonna die in this round, or in the first round. It's not going to be a match at all.
In the first round. In the first round. Okay.
In the first round, because I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, here's the thing: like Floyd Mayweather is training, like how to just get back into like proper boxing shape and just further refine the skills that he's already had. Conor McGregor is learning how to box. And we're putting bets on whether he's going to win a boxing match, right? It's the difference between, the quarterback who is learning how to become more accurate and the offensive lineman who is just handed a football and told to play quarterback. That's what we're going to see on Saturday.
Okay, so I think it's pretty much unanimous across the board here. No one thinks McGregor has any chance whatsoever. I guess we'll go another way. JR's already said 12 rounds. Miles, do you think it's going the full 12, or do you think that Mayweather's going to get to stop somewhere in there?
I don't think it can go the first round. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter for the boxing community because once it starts, they got their money.
Yeah, they made the money once it starts.
Right.
I don't think this is one of those boxing matches that is tied to the number of rounds that they get paid. I think it's literally the minute the match starts, they get their money.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to go at least 6 though to make it somewhat entertaining for people and to make it a noteworthy story. Because if it's the first or second round, then to me it's all the fans. People are just be really disappointed.
Do you guys think that this could be a potential match where if Mayweather really cares, maybe he doesn't care about his record anymore and he's just trying to make more money, he loses this fight so he can get a second fight, win that fight, and potentially get a third fight?
Isn't this Mayweather's 50th? He's going for his 50th win. Well,
there ain't 50, I know.
Yeah, there ain't no way he's settling for 49.
Yeah,
and they had a take. So on Bomani Jones' show on ESPN today, they had one of the guys from Showtime on talking about it. And, that's one of the things that's kind of floated around now is people are trying to sell the fight and convince themselves that maybe there's a way that McGregor can win this thing. And one of the points that the Showtime analyst made whose name is escaping right now, is that if Mayweather ever was going to throw a fight, it likely would have been the Pacquiao fight, because that was also a huge fight. And at least there, you can say you lost to another great boxer. Whereas in this case, if he loses to McGregor, even if he stands to make a ton of money down the road, just the embarrassment of it, they didn't think was something that Floyd would be able to deal with. And there's never the chance. There's always the chance, that, even if you kind of had a wink, nudge deal with a guy like Conor McGregor to throw the first one and then come back and do the next two, that McGregor just might walk away and leave you with that L. So they just were thinking that there was no way he would do that in this case against someone who was a non-boxer, just because the shame in the boxing community would be too much for him to deal with. So that was a perspective of this that I hadn't thought of, but it makes a lot of sense. He wants that 50-0, and I don't think there's any way he's going to let himself get the L from a Conor McGregor. All right, I think that's it for the starting point of the random non-Vikings related sports talk we wanted to get into. We do have a guest lined up for y'all, so I think right now we're going to do is put things on pause for just a quick second. Don't leave us. We're going to see if we can get him on the line for you, and we'll keep this thing going. All right, guys, and we did find our guest. Mr. Charles McDonald is here, so we will go ahead and get these 5 questions with Charles going for you guys. Charles, start off with an easy one. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into this online scouting game.
Well, I used to play football. I played football from 8 years old to 20 years old at Gettysburg College, and then injury forced me to retire. But I just figured, I was an English major, and I was like, hell, why not I just start writing about it and see what happens? So I started writing for this website called NFL Mocks for Fansided, and then just kind of kept at it after a while, and got a spot at the Falcoholic, and then we're doing some NFL 1000 work for Bleacher Report before Justis and I, we started our podcast, Setting the Edge. You can find on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all that stuff. Yeah, it just kind of started out of me just kind of being bored, honestly, and just seeing what I could do with it. And it's actually blossomed into a nice little thing for me.
That's awesome. Well, one of the main reasons that we wanted to have you on today is JR has obviously interacted with you on Twitter a couple times, and he wanted to have you on to talk about a person who's becoming a burgeoning star on Vikings Twitter, Mr. Jaleel Johnson. So I wanted to know from your perspective, like, how excited should we be about Jaleel Johnson and what we're seeing from him so far in preseason?
Well, I played defensive line. I coached defensive line last year, so I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on these guys, and he was one of the guys I was really looking forward to watching, like at the Senior Bowl, and throughout the draft process, because I didn't do much like film work in season, but as soon as the season ended, I started going back and watching some of these interior guys, and like Jaleel Johnson, he always caught my eye because things in the NFL happen so quickly on every single play that I think we tend to get caught up in athleticism. You just look at guys, oh, he's a freak athlete, he should be able to fit in. But when you're in the NFL and you're in tight quarters like that playing defensive tackle, everything happens so quickly. And I don't really think that the athleticism gives you a huge edge unless you're somebody freakish like Aaron Donald or Ndamukong Suh, something like that. So really it's more about technique and being able to see and read and react quickly to what's happening right in front of you. And that's what I thought Jaleel did really well at Iowa. I had him as a first round talent on my little board that I did right before that I put together right before the draft, and I was kind of surprised to see him fall to the fourth round. But he did have a terrible combine. But I always thought that when you look at the interior guys, I think that tape matters more than combine. And we look at the edge guys, like that's where you're trying to close amount of space in a certain amount of time. So athleticism matters a little bit more there. But I thought Jaleel always had good tape. I think ending up playing next to Linval Joseph is going to be huge for him. And he had a big game against Seattle, and all of his big plays came in the fourth quarter against Seattle's backup offensive line, which is essentially like a JV squad. But it was still really cool to see him do the things that he did well in college, and I think he's going to end up being the starter for that team.
That's awesome. JR, did you have any follow-ups on that? Because I know obviously Jaleel's someone that you're really, really high on as well. So were there any other questions or anything else you wanted to get into with Charles on that front?
Yeah, we know how good Jaleel is, and in run support, and his ability to stuff the run. Like, what qualities makes him so good in his run defense?
It all starts with his hands. He never misses his aiming points when he's shooting out of his 3-point stance. He holds his blocks really well. One thing that always impressed me was he knows how to read and react like any blocking scheme you throw out in front of him. I remember they're playing against Wisconsin. Yeah, Wisconsin, I want to say. And they were running a trap to the opposite side that Jaleel was on. And like as soon as that guard pulled to go to the other side, he just got right in that back pocket of the guard and started chasing down the running back. And you don't really see a lot of young guys make those plays like that. Sometimes they'll just run up the field and get lost. But Jaleel, like he never got lost on any blocking scheme. His technique was always sound. And I actually asked him about that at the Senior Bowl, and he just said, it's something that he always focuses on and make sure that he's a very detail-oriented player, and it really shows in his game. And I think that what you saw versus Seattle, and even when he had that sack versus Buffalo, like, it's always the little things that he does well to kind of help overcome that. I don't want to say lack of athleticism because I think he moves well on the field, but it helps him be a forceful player without having overwhelming athleticism.
Good. And just next question is, today he talked about being at 3 technique and how much more freer he felt there. The Vikings started him off at nose tackle, that 1 technique. So for fans that might not know, just tell us what's the difference between being a 1 technique and a 3 technique in a 4-3 scheme.
So your 3 technique is you're going to be on the outside shoulder of the guard, and depending on what kind of front you run, like I'm a Falcons fan, so you see them run like an under front, which means their 3 tech is going to be on the weak side. If you run an over front, your 3 tech is going to be on the strong side. So that 3 technique is going to be on the outside shoulder of the guard, and when you're playing on the outside shoulder of the guard, you usually have an end. Either a gap away from you or a gap and a half away from you. So you're not going to see too many double teams from that tackle because he has to focus on the end and block that end. So you're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups. But when you're at 1 technique, you're on the inside shoulder guard, and that means you're going to hit a lot of double teams from the center and the guard, which is not a lot of fun to play with. It's more fun to be a 3-tech and get those one-on-one matchups. And I think like when you look back at Jaleel's game, and that the Penn State game is a perfect example of this. He's not really a 1-tech, even though like his combine stats might say he's a nose tackle. His game, his play style, it's all straight up 3-tech, and it's not surprising to me that he said he feels better at 3 than 1.
Awesome. And you mentioned that you are a Falcons fan, so we definitely did have a question related to the Falcons that we had on the show sheet for you here. And, how are you recovering from, what many have called the most memorable Super Bowl of all time?
Mainly just making jokes about it. Like anytime because I don't know, I don't want to wallow in what happened, because I did that for like a week after it happened. After they lost the game, I didn't watch like NFL Network, ESPN, Sports Center, nothing like that for like 2 weeks. When it was on, I remember there was one time I was at the gym and it was on, and I actually left and went home because I couldn't bear just watching the highlights of that game. But just making jokes about it, and after a while, you kind of move on like from being sad about it. It's just it's funny because that's just like peak Falcons for what they do. Like if you go back and you look at like, having your star quarterback arrested on dogfighting charges, you score 2 points in a playoff game against the Giants, you're up like 24-14 against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and you blow that lead to. You're the first team in NFL history to lose on a pick 2 this year to the Kansas City Chiefs, and then it's like how would this team lose a Super Bowl like that? Like being up 28-3 and blowing it like that. And I've just kind of gotten used to it. Hey, maybe this is what the universe wants Falcons fans to suffer through. And unfortunately, I'm too deep in and out to switch teams.
How did you become a Falcons fan in the first place?
I was originally from Decatur, Georgia, and then Michael Vick happened, and I was like, this is my dude. I still love him to this day.
Right, makes sense.
All right, well, we'll get you out of here. One last question. Obviously, you let us know about the podcast there, but I guess any other upcoming projects that our listeners should be looking out for?
Yeah, so Justis and I, we have a website, settingedge.com. It's with our podcast, Setting the Edge, and we've been posting stuff like, film reviews. If we run if Justis or our friend Anthony Chiato, if they run some stats stuff, they'll post on the website. So that's where we've been posting. Like when we have free time for fun. Justis is doing NFL 1000 work now. I'll be joining NFL 1000 after the season. So most of my work will be on Setting Edge or Falcoholic. So yeah, just follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at ForVerts. You can follow Justis at Jumosq, Jumosq. And you can follow our Twitter account for Setting the Edge at Setting Edge.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on tonight. You shared a lot of great stuff with us, and we'll let you get back to it, man. Have a good one. All right, that was our interview there with Charles McDonald, Setting the Edge. A lot of great stuff there. I guess, guys, what do you think about that in terms of some of the things he was getting into with the the differences, nose tackle, 3-tech, how we should use Jaleel? I know JR kind of was in there, talking about the D-line stuff. But Miles, what are your thoughts on kind of what Charles was talking about, how we should use Jaleel Johnson going forward?
Yeah, I love it. He talked about how he's not surprised how natural the 3-tech position is for a guy like Jaleel Johnson. I think it was always a spot I liked him at when we drafted him. I just think he can play it next to a guy like Linval Joseph and still have the ability to kind of – he's still not a refined pass rusher yet, but he can, as you saw against teams like Seattle last week, his ability to penetrate and get into the backfield is really good. His first step's nice, and his hands, he uses his hands really well. So I was really excited. I'm really liked what Charles had to say about that. He makes the pick of Jaleel Johnson, which I know might have been a little up and down, and I know fans might have been a little skeptical about it early, not hearing his name much during OTAs and early in training camp or anything like that. So, finally getting to see him kind of showcase. I'm really excited to see his opportunities this week and see where he plays. If he even gets some, run with the ones this week would be awesome to see.
It's awesome. And Prince, I guess, did you have any thoughts on anything that Charles had to say about Jaleel, or were you ready to get into some of this other Vikings stuff?
No, I one thing that he kind of brought up is just the he took the topic of kind of athleticism versus what you see, combine versus tape and stuff. And you guys know I'm a huge tape guy. I think as far as maybe where we will see Jaleel get to excel a little bit more is the fact that he is going to be next to Linval Joseph. So he is going to be able to be maybe a little bit more reckless, is kind of what Mike Zimmer was saying as well, too. He probably doesn't have – I'm not sure if he has the athleticism that Sharif Floyd has. I think Sharif Floyd is kind of a freak. He was constantly able to get into the backfield quicker than most defensive tackles. So that's maybe something that Jaleel can obviously work towards, is just continue to improve in himself as a pass rusher. But I think Charles said it the best. I see Jaleel being the best option for us at 3 technique, as far as our starters go. So it was very good stuff that Charles had laid on for us.
Awesome. Well, let's slide into a little bit more Vikings talk. And you mentioned Coach Zimmer there, and one of the things that got a little bit of run on Twitter yesterday was Mike Zimmer coming out and saying that he thought Mackenzie Alexander played quote unquote good. So start with you, JR. I guess, what are your thoughts on that comment? Do you agree with Zimmer, or do you think it was something else going on there?
Well, it all goes back to knowing the actual cause of the defense, which we really don't know. But just looking from the outside in, I didn't think he played really well. That slot corner position is one of the most, sought after positions in all of football. And it's one of the hardest defensive positions to play on the field, just because you have no room for error, and it's a 3-way go for a receiver. So you really have to have a guy that you really trust at that position, being that the NFL is now more of a passing league. So it's really a sought after position, like I said before. But McKenzie didn't really look good. He just looked lost from time to time. And Doug Baldwin is a very, very good receiver, highly underrated. And, he really made things easy for him. And McKenzie just looked lost in space. And I don't think he played well at all. But, of course, Zimmer knows a ton more than I know and what their exact scheme was on that play. So some plays might not have been McKenzie's fault, but from our point of view, it looked like it was. But in my opinion, I didn't think he played well at all.
Is Miles Yenka, I guess, where are you guys at with it? Are you feeling like, maybe we had it wrong from the outside and didn't know the play calls, or you think maybe Zimmer's protecting his guys since, Mack is really our only option for the slot right now?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's more of like keeping his confidence up right now. It's still way early. It's still really early for them and for him. I know that week 1's, in a couple weeks, but I think keeping his confidence level up right now, knowing that he's your guy going into week 1 is really important, and just continuing to kind of coach him up during practice and get him going, keep that confidence as, it's key. You'll see, guys perform better when their confidence level is up. So if Zim can help keep that up, even a little bit, even if he is feeling down a little bit, that's the biggest key, because he did struggle and he has struggled so far. But, like we've always said heading into it, there's going to be growing pains. It wasn't a natural move for Mackenzie Alexander right away to do it, because he's so used to playing on the outside and kind of playing on that island. So getting him more acclimated and more used to it, it's just going to take time, and we're going to have growing pains. But I think for the long term, it's for the best. So I'm not going to say I'm worried right now. I just, you hope you see him play fairly well this week against San Francisco.
And Prince, bring us home on the Mackenzie Alexander talk.
Yeah, I think it's a few things, actually. I think as far as Mike Zimmer goes, the respect that he's gained over the last, this season is obviously because he's very much he tells you exactly what's going on in his head. He doesn't sugarcoat things and stuff. But at the same time, that's kind of gotten him in trouble when he's talked to specifically the media. With the issues with Sharif Floyd and issues with Anthony Barr and stuff, he was very outspoken as far as things that he didn't like. And the thing is I think he can continue to still be that guy behind closed doors, tell play where they're at and all that stuff. But, maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a transition from Mike Zimmer just being the guy who says publicly this player is trash. They need to do better, not coast. And just like, what? I know that you guys might think he didn't do as well, but, there's some things that I saw that he did really well. Because, I say that these players go and watch Vikings.com, Redfall.com, and listen to Zim's quotes and stuff. But that kind of stuff, it gets asked in interviews. It gets asked, publicly. They see that stuff on their timelines and all that stuff. So I think we're trying to see a more mature Mike Zimmer when it comes to how he handles players within the media. And I mean, even within that, we don't always know the play calls. We don't know what's necessarily going on. And I think that's one thing that Zim has tried to kind of put forth, and even players have tried to put forth. Like, we might see Alexander maybe not looking the greatest, but, maybe he was actually doing his assignment on a specific play, and for whatever reason it was a bad call, or, just someone else wasn't doing their assignment, so it made another player look bad. So I think a combination of things, but I think it's mostly Zim is just not trying to, like Miles had said, not trying to ruin Mack's confidence. Did that with Anthony Barr last season, so.
I'm sure your last thought was incredibly insightful. I'm very upset to have missed it.
I mean, if people don't respect that opinion now, I guess I don't know what else I can put forth to be more profound. So you just missed gold. I'm sorry to say, but the best take I've ever had was.
Well, luckily for me, I also produced the show, so I'll be listening to all of what you just said in another couple minutes there. So not sure if I even want to bring this up, but I feel like I have to. Things were really excited and excitable the last time we were recording. Arif was calling you names about some things, saying you were hinting about some things. And
Arif always calls me some things, so that's no different.
And then, some people have been sending you, or sometimes Miles, because they think Miles is you, some rude messages on Twitter.com. And
Reddit.
I was put under the impression that some stuff was supposed to be happening, and ain't nothing happening. What's going on, Prince? With the sauces?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll do my best. I'll do my best to address it. I love any information I get. I love to, as much as I can share, because I can't share everything that I receive. I love to give out to Vikings fans however I can. But I mean, I think one thing that always needs to be clear is, the sources are more often than not, they're right, but that might change. Vikings might either change their mind, or they might be slower to release things because they're trying to play things close to the chest. This is another situation where I believe the Vikings are trying to play things a little bit closer to the chest. Some of the rumors that they're out there they're true, but they're true to a certain extent. There still should be a level of excitement concerning this situation. And yeah, if it doesn't happen this second things are said, I know it's hard to ask a fan base to be patient, but I think it's something that Vikings fans should be really excited for, in my opinion, at least. So that's the best way I can kind of address the situation. I did reconfirm everything through a lot of different channels, a lot of different janitors and whatnot. So I still feel really pretty confident about the rumors that are still swirling out there. So
Custodian. Thank you.
Hey man, my dad was a janitor, so I mean he got
custodian
some stuff. So
custodian,
you're right. The technical term is custodian.
All right, so I guess we'll round this thing on out here. JR, before we lose you, I know you hinted, you let us know that you were doing a preview for this week's game. What should we expect, man? What should Vikings fans be looking for in the dress rehearsal game against San Francisco?
I think we should just be looking for continued success offensively. I would like to see him finish with a touchdown this week. The signs were pointing up as far as, the flow we had offensively. I thought the running game was much better. The passing game seemed to click much more efficiently. So it seems like we'll have all five guys up front, which is good to see. We'll have Reef. Reef will be back. Supposedly, Boone will be back. I think F-line will most likely get the start at center again. We'll have Berger at right guard, and we'll have Remmers at right tackle. So we'll have all five guys back together. And that's one thing I definitely will be keying in on, just to see how their chemistry is since they haven't played together besides in practice. I think the first actual practice is the last time they actually all five played together, considering Reef got hurt. I think it was the first or second practice, something like that. So it's been a while since all five of them have played together. And, just how much did they click together up front? That's really what I'm looking for.
That's awesome. I guess, Miles, what about yourself, man? What are you going to be looking for in this game?
Yeah, Jared touched on the offensive line is always key. You want to see that, if we can see all five starters, if, this is the start of the all five starting group, that's an exciting thing to see because we've kind of been waiting for a while to see it all to come together. And then for me, I want to see the run defense kind of step it up a little bit. They get to go, it's the Brandon Fusco revenge game, so you never know how well he's going to play. But no, for real, I really want to see them just look better in the run game and kind of not get gashed a little bit. And then I want to see guys like I'm hoping Treadwell makes his debut this week. Sounds like he should be good to go. Yeah, stop. Don't do that. Don't ruin my dreams. A guy like Treadwell, though, is one I really want to see just because, if they're going to start in 3 wide receiver sets, I'm hoping, he gets that opportunity this week. And if he does, I'm, take full advantage of it. And then lastly, I just want to see how that third linebacker spot shakes out. It's really looking like it's going to be Ben Gideon right now, the way he played last week and kind of the instincts he plays with. But I'd still think guys like Emmanuel Lemur and Edwin Robinson are still fighting for roster spots, let alone, that starting spot. So
Miles,
curious to see how that pans out. Yes, sir.
Question for you.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
Who has more receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns in this coming season? Dalvin Cook or Laquan Treadwell?
Why do you do that?
That feels like a good question.
Who has you said receptions, yards, and touchdowns?
Yes, sir.
Like just receiving. Obviously.
Yep,
touchdown,
just receiving.
I think Treadwell has more receiving touchdowns. I think Dalvin might. It's gonna be. I really think it's gonna be close. I think Treadwell has more yards and touchdowns. Cook might have a little more receptions, just because out of the backfield, slip screens and how Bradford likes to throw the little dump off. So that'd be my assumption.
Prince, where are you at with it? Who you think's gonna have more receptions, yards, and touchdowns receiving? Dalvin or Treadwell?
And then after, do the same thing with Michael Floyd.
Treadwell will have more receiving touchdowns. He'll have more receiving yards, but Dalvin will have more receptions.
I mean, you could have just said.
So I think Miles was.
You could have just said you were copying off Miles's paper.
Well, I was still up in the air as far as who I thought might get more receiving yards, just because Dalvin does have the ability to break off one of these, whereas I think that's, we all know Treadwell is not the fastest guy, so I don't really feel like he's going to break one off. But I think if you get Dalvin in the open field, he might have an ability to do that a little bit more. So and Dalvin will go out for he'll go out wide a few times too. So we have to watch for some of those plays where Dalvin's able to become more of a wide receiver. So that in and of itself is definitely going to limit Treadwell in that respect, because there's going to be an extra receiver taking up receptions.
Oh, that's another good one. So Miles, who has the longer receiving touchdown this season, Treadwell or Cook?
Oh God,
Treadwell, just because you're do the same thing with just Michael Floyd and Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin easy. I'm okay with that though. I just like doing this because it really seems to hurt you to your core.
It more so just annoys me.
Can I say
everything's got to be like Treadwell against somebody, Treadwell against somebody else, Treadwell against somebody else. It's just like I just want to see everybody do well.
I mean, I do too, but I also enjoy annoying you. So
I know you're good at it.
Yeah, take the good, you take the bad. Take them both. Yeah. Prince, how about you, man? I know we kind of skipped over you. What are you really gonna be looking for and digging into when you sit down to watch this game?
I am excited to watch former potential future first-round pick, Mitch Leidner. Here's why, you guys. I had to watch this man for 4
Will he
years.
play this week?
I think he might get some action.
Oh, is Heineke right? Or is he back?
Heineke's gone, so I mean, unless they're going to play Keenum, literally unless they're going to play Keenum like the rest after the game.
Well, if Bradford plays the whole half,
it's
like in the second half. But yeah, my bad. I wasn't sure about the Heineke thing.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to play on Sunday, in my opinion. But you guys are going to get to understand what it was like to be a Gopher fan and watch Mitch Leidner play. Now, he can be an anomaly, to be perfectly honest. Like, there's a lot of people who would back.
I'm a Gopher fan, Prince. I watched.
Okay. But he's an anomaly. There's some games where it's like just of flashes. And then there's some games where, the calls for, another quarterback was very loud in the stands. But the funny thing is I just want to see how he interacts, how he, how has he grown as a player, since his time in Minnesota. And I think the first 3 minutes is probably going to be a good indicator. I'll take that back. The first 3 plays will be a good indication of where he's grown as a player. So I'm actually excited because, I love I'll go for, Vikings. I'll be even more excited when a Gopher that I'm related to is on the Vikings this next season. But I don't know. I'm just excited to see Mitch Leidner play. Just because I just want to see how it is, and I don't know. I think it's either going to be really, really good for the Vikings or the jokes are going to write themselves. So it's going to be entertaining regardless for me, and I'll be at the game too. So.
Oh, well, that answers that question from a Prince perspective. My follow-up was I wanted to see, if y'all were being really real about watching this whole game, because, Dem Thrones season finale is coming on. So I was just looking to get, I guess, Miles, I'll ask, since we know JR doesn't watch the show. Miles, you really watching the entire Vikings game from front to back? Or are you watching, like, the first half and then slide into Dem Thrones? Or are you watching the whole game and then staying up real late to watch Dem Thrones? Like, how you making it through your required Sunday evening watching this week?
Yeah, so we don't have like a DVR, but we have HBO Now, or is it Go, or whatever it's called on our smart TV or whatever it is. So we don't have to watch Thrones right at the start. So we might watch. I think we've talked about a little bit watching most of the game, if not all of it, and then jumping into Thrones late, or I'll call in sick on Monday from work. Watch it.
I will tell you this about HBO Go, because we have it as well. The one night of the week it struggles most is on Sunday.
We've never had an issue with it.
So just do a test run before you get in there, because I about put something through my television on the opening week of Game of Thrones when it shut down on me on Sunday night.
I think ours is HBO Now, but I don't really think it matters.
Okay.
I think it's the same thing. At least it feels like the same thing.
Well, all right. I feel like we made it through everything we wanted to talk about. I guess, was there anything else, Sexy Prince? Miles, anything else y'all wanted to get on there?
Thrones is about to be lit.
Yes, sir.
It's gonna be insane, you guys. I can't even imagine. Here's what I will say. I think we might have talked about this. Maybe was it in maybe in our chat, or just maybe in the last episode, or how predictable.
Yes, it was predictable.
Has become. Like, I guess I don't like that aspect. I'm glad that they've deviated from the books and stuff, but because now it feels a little bit more, like they have taken control of the show. But it's kind of become a little bit more, too explosion-y, too dragon fire, mystical, blah, blah, which, is great. I think
it's an FX show now. It's not an HBO show anymore.
Exactly. Show. It's like watching dude who does Transformers. What's his director guy?
Michael Bay.
It's essentially just a Michael Bay TV show. Essentially, all the explosions and which is great. It makes these intense scenes more intense. But I don't know. I call it the second that Daenerys was going to save, people. Spoiler, my bad, y'all. Or just the scenes that are going to happen, like you can just kind of see them. And I want someone who I love to die tomorrow. Like on Sunday.
Man,
I do. I like
Lord,
because that's a feeling that I would get every other season, right? It was be like season 1, I lost someone. Season 3, I lost someone. It was a 4 or 5.
That dragon going down though didn't do nothing for you.
It did, but I didn't have it. It's because it wasn't her main dragon that she always rides on.
Right. Well, yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, because if he went down, I would have felt a little something. But
you'd cancel. I'd cancel the show.
Because I was actually
ain't no point.
But that's the thing. It's like you want to stop watching the show. You wanted to stop watching the show after season 3 because what? And then after it was a season 5 with the Mountain and Viper. Was it season 5 or season 4? Season 5.
I just think it's hilarious that like now all of our pods just basically end with like running outtakes of us just like rambling about Game of Thrones.
That won't even make the show.
Oh no! The last one's made the show. I just started the music and played the music over us talking about Game of Thrones for like the last 2 minutes of the show.
Okay. So like predictions then. If someone has to die that you care about next episode, who do you think it could be?
I mean, that I care about, or who's a major character in the show? Because that's different.
I'll give them both. Give us both.
I mean, if it's a main character, like I gotta sacrifice somebody for the good of Game of Thrones, then I mean, Sansa can go.
Yes.
Yeah, Sansa can get that.
Yeah, Sansa can go.
Wait, what? Never mind. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, we don't need that.
The way you said that was weird.
Not if you know.
Yeah, I got what you're saying, but
for me, I think here's my little spoiler. I don't know if this is true, obviously, but I think Arya's already killed Littlefinger and has been wearing his face around, and she's testing Sansa right now. So that's my theory. I think we're gonna find out that Littlefinger's dead, and Arya, has been behind it all because she's an assassin.
I guess we haven't since that initial meeting. I don't think we've seen them in the same room.
That's what I'm saying.
Since that.
Now I'm gonna have to go dig into Reddit and see if what the Redditors have to say.
I know, right?
Miles' Game of Thrones today.
I listen to Game of Thrones podcast too. So.
Oh boy. Oh man. Well,
I still want to know. Sorry, last thing. I still want to know if the sword thing or whatever that blinked, if it was just water or if it was Bran.
I thought it was water, but
I mean, I can go the folks on Twitter had me convinced, man.
Well, it doesn't matter though, because unless they do something with it and do more with it, then to me it doesn't matter. It
does because it would play in a part in time.
Yeah, they got a
Benjen showed up.
We're playing a part to how John got saved.
But they need to tell us
if it wasn't.
But if they're going to leave it alone and not do any more with it later, then to me it doesn't matter.
True.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and say thank y'all for tuning into another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast / Game of Thrones fan theory podcast. We will be back probably on Tuesday because the game is on Sunday, so we're not recording on Sunday. We're back in there on Monday, recording some goodness for y'all. So yeah, hold it down. Follow Charles and Justis on Twitter. We'll link to their website in the show notes. Have a good night, y'all.